3, 4, 5, 6. Estamos con Todd Minerson, es director ejecutivo de la coalición del listón blanco en Canadá. Todd, thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how the White Ribbon Coalition began in Canada?
Sure. It started in 1991, unfortunately as the result of a terrible tragedy in Canadian history. 2 years before that, at a Montreal engineering school, a man walked into the school near the end of the winter exams and proceeded to walk into a classroom, separated the men from the women, and killed 14 women, injured dozens more, blamed his rage on feminism and all his problems in the world, on the advances that women are making in society. And unfortunately, that was a really traumatic event in Canadian history that forced us to really look at the issue of violence against women in a very different way. Was this an isolated event, or is this one of the worst manifestations of a very systemic problem of men's violence against women? So as the second anniversary of the December 6th event approached, a number of men in Toronto, in Canada, sat around and were convinced that there was a role and a responsibility that they had to work towards ending violence against women. They came up with this idea of the White Ribbon and the pledge that still accompanies it to this day. And that pledge is to never commit, condone, or remain silent about violence against women. And for 18 years, that has still been the fundamental belief behind the White Ribbon campaign, that it's a pledge to never commit, condone, or remain silent about violence against women.
So that's the core value of White Ribbon. Who do you address mainly?
So our belief is that we can work with men and boys in positive ways to address the issue of men's violence against women. We think that there's roles beyond perpetrators of violence or potential perpetrators of violence that men need to take on in this struggle. They can be engaged bystanders, they can be positive role models, they can challenge their peers. So primarily our work is trying to address men and boys and work on the issues around gender equality that can help prevent violence against women in the long run.
So you worked with all the masculine population in Canada eventually.
Yes.
And has that grown? The population you reach every year?
It's definitely grown, and we've also had to sharpen our strategic focus a little bit more because we don't have the resources to try to address men across every spectrum of age and class and ethnocultural diversity. So we really do focus a lot of our work in Canada on working with young people. And we do that in a couple of different ways. We have developed a number of resources which are designed to be used in schools. And so in addition to doing workshops with young people, we spend a lot of time, invest a lot of time in training teachers how to use these tools in classrooms, and even training teachers, college students, so students who are about to become teachers, about these resources being available and these resources being designed to help teach gender equality issues in classrooms to both boys and girls. In addition, we do things like an annual boys summit where we bring 200 or 300 boys together to talk about issues of masculinity for the first time. These are boys aged 8 to about 13 or 14, and we use popular media like hip-hop and drama and music composition to really get them to engage in these ideas for the first time.
Good. With authorities, you've done some interesting work. With authorities.
What kind of authorities?
Political authorities, Congress, people, yeah. Men who are public.
Yes. We think that, obviously, one of our other beliefs is that men don't really respond to the negative kinds of messages that say, don't do this, or you're bad, or you shouldn't do this, or the finger wagging and guilt and shame kinds of messages. So we really feel that, first of all, men need to be involved in developing those messages, and those messages need to address them. We have to always think about who the messenger is for those messages, and often that has been, in Canada, in our experience, working with politicians or artists or musicians, poets, writers, people that, and athletes at times as well, but people that men might look up to and listen to when they're delivering these kinds of messages. And we have had a fair number of involvement in terms of awareness raising involving politicians in Canada as well.
What's the most biggest quantity of people reached in your campaigns? Some years ago I heard about 1 million people were the target.
That might have been a global kind of estimation. In Canada every year we distribute about 700,000 ribbons across the country, and globally we think now in the 57 countries where there are White Ribbon Campaign activities, it's probably closer to 2 million people that are involved or being reached directly through White Ribbon Campaign activities.
Is there a specific day where you do it in Canada? It's more a week.
Yeah, well, and one of the beautiful things is we do have this week in Canada. Traditionally it's evolved to be the week between November 25th, which is the United Nations Day to End Violence Against Women, and December 6th, which is the anniversary of the Montreal Massacre in Canada, and a day that we've declared as a country as a day for mourning and action on ending violence against women. So we have traditionally focused our awareness campaign effort in that week, but now in Canada it's definitely a full year activity in terms of violence prevention and raising awareness and challenging people on their own attitudes and beliefs around violence against women.
57 countries.
58
with Mexico, I hope, this year.
Let's make it 58, Mexico.
58. In Latin America, which other countries do you have?
There's been some work in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Brazil, in I think Venezuela, Argentina, and then some countries in the Caribbean as well, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, of course Canada and the US as well. And Latin America is one of those places where, as the idea came out in the world, that really took up the idea, which was such an inspiring thing to us to know that there really is a desire amongst men in the world to understand what they can do to work to end violence against women.
What kind of collaboration do you establish with the countries?
So one of the philosophies of White Ribbon is that the campaign should be as decentralized as possible.
Good.
First of all, we don't have the resources to effectively develop campaigns across the world. But more importantly, we don't have the cultural sensitivity, the language skills, or the understanding of gender dynamics in different places in the world to do that in any way that's responsible or relevant. So our philosophy has always been, if you subscribe to the same beliefs that we've promoted as the White Ribbon Campaign, we want to remove as many barriers as we can to you determining how that work should happen in your community. And your community could be a classroom, it could be a faith group, it could be a village, a town, a city, a country, or even a region, as we're starting to see some of the work evolve through Men Engage and other kinds of alliances that are helping coordinate regional strategies for doing this kind of work. So in terms of the actual support that we can provide or we like to be able to offer, it ranges from occasionally very formal collaborations that involve funding to do several kinds of programming over several years, such as we're doing with Brazil, where we've got funding from the Canadian government to help them work with us to develop a strong national Lazo Blanco campaign in Brazil, as well as do campaign work around fatherhood issues, workplace issues, and adapt some of our education resources for young people. More often, it's a very collaborative and supportive relationship where we can share advice, experience, and other kinds of connections and networking. And of course, always in the vein of removing barriers to access our materials. If we know that an organization has a good intention, we have no problem with them coming on and adapting and translating and making the work that we've already done relevant for use in their own community.
Something else you would like to add to our Mexican and Latin American colleagues?
Well, the main thing, the question that we always get asked is, how do I start a campaign? And the answer we always give to people when they ask that question is, you tell me.
Okay.
What is going to work in your community? What are the specific issues you want to focus on around masculinity and any violence against women? What are the best methods to reach men? We really passionately believe that people in communities have the best sense of how that's going to work. So, not to be constricted by any format or barriers or ways things have been done in the past, but to really think of something that is meaningful and relevant to the cultural and gender experience in Mexico. And then the last thing is to please share it with us, because one of the roles that we play is, as the First White Ribbon Campaign, is to help connect and inspire people around the world. And the more great experiences that we hear about, the more we can share and inspire others. And that's the way it's gone from our kitchen table in Toronto 18 years ago to 57 countries around the world. So it's really, really useful for us to hear about what people are doing around the world, because not only for our learning, but for the other hundreds and hundreds of people who contact us every year, it's more inspiration, and that's how this whole thing has grown over the last 18 years. So please share what you're doing with us, and let us be inspired by the work that's happening here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benno.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Is that good?
Very good.
Okay.
Muy bien. Thank you, Pancho. Una foto.
Hey.
Y empezamos.